Week 8 of college football is here. We're halfway through the season, but these marquee matchups are not slowing down anytime soon. We've got big games like Georgia versus Texas, Georgia Tech versus Notre Dame, and so many more. It's time to break the huddle. I'm your host, Nathan Johnston, here with my co host, Brad. And Brad, look, this is going to be another great weekend of football. It seems like every weekend playoff contentions are at stake, and yet we might see a 9-3 team in the playoff. We don't know. So let's not waste anyone's time. Let's jump right into it for week 8 matchups. Our first matchup of the week is going to be a Friday night kickoff where the Fresno State Bulldogs go on the road to take on the Nevada Wolfpack. This is like I said, Friday night kickoff, 10:30 p.m. on CBS SN at McKay Stadium in Reno, Nevada. Brad, this is an interesting matchup for the Mountain West. Two teams that are fighting it out, trying to stay on track for the season. Fresno has started off a little bit rough. Nevada maybe has the edge in this game, even though there's an underdog. Brad, I'll turn it over to you. Thoughts on this Mountain West matchup and who comes out on top in Reno, Nevada?
Absolutely, Nate. So, we talked about Fresno State here recently with their game against UNLV and their game against Washington State. And, Fresno obviously went through a coaching change just weeks before the season. So they've had to, adjust some things. I've been really impressed with Nevada. I know they're a game below 500, but, week 0, they took SMU to the last possession. They played Georgia Southern extremely close. They lost a close one to San Jose State a couple weeks ago. And then Nate, I'm going to say upset Oregon State last week. So Jeff Choate, who is in his first year at Nevada, is doing an incredible job. I think he is just a really, really good fit. I know you're especially a big fan of him. I know me and you have talked about him a lot. His, just his resume coming over from Texas, and I think he's doing a really, really good job there in Nevada. So I'm going to take the Wolfpack in this one. I think this being at home, it's going to be a good atmosphere. Nate, also they've got a really, really good running back in Savion Red, 500 yards on the year. Came into the year with 30 career carries. And so he is definitely, I think, giving them a boost. Great size at 5'10", 214. And I just think Nevada, that culture and what he is, what Coach Jeff Choate is trying to establish, I think it's really going to take over, and Nevada gets a win on Friday night.
Yeah, Brad, these Friday night, Thursday night games, they're always interesting to me, right? You just never know if home field advantage is going to play a factor in this. Also, traveling during the week, is it going to shift the mindset of some of these players, some of these coaches? You mentioned Jeff Choate coming over from Texas, and yeah, he hasn't done phenomenal this year. They're 3-4 to start the year, but to get 3 wins under his belt, I don't know what the over-under was for their season, but I'm really big on him. You look at a guy like Brandon Lewis at quarterback for Nevada. He's having the season of a lifetime. He's got over 1,100 yards passing as well as over 500 yards rushing. To me, that's the difference in this game, is a dual-threat quarterback that's going to keep Fresno State on the run all night. And look, Fresno State struggled. Mikey Keene, we were really high on him a couple years ago, transferring over from UCF, quarterback for Fresno State. He's regressed this year, Brad. He has not played the way that we thought he would. And it's disappointing because Fresno State is a very, very good program that has a lot of potential over there, Mountain West, possibly into the Pac-12 in the future years. But for Friday night's game, I'm going to take the Nevada Wolfpack as well in an upset close. Yeah, it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a fun game to watch. Give me the Nevada Wolfpack. Let us know down in the comments who you think is going to come out in this Mountain West contest out in Reno, Nevada. Our next matchup of the week takes us to the great state of South Carolina, Conway, South Carolina, to be more specific, where the 5-1 Louisiana Ragin' Cajun come into town to take on the 4-2 Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. I'm going to get that right this week, Brad. Saturday kickoff at 12 p.m. on ESPNU. And The Louisiana Raging Cajun come into this one favored away by 4.5 points. Brad, we picked against Coastal Carolina last week against a tough James Madison team. Can they get back on track this week and get a win at home?
Yeah, Nate, this is an intriguing one, obviously. Coastal Carolina is just a really good program right now. But Nate, I'm gonna tell you, I'm impressed with Louisiana with the Raging Cajuns. We have not talked about them a whole lot here on the channel, but of course, this is Coach Billy Napier's old team. And Nate, I've been impressed with them. Their only loss is a 8-point loss to Tulane, and we know Tulane's a very good program right now, but they've got a good mix of just being a good offense and just being a good defense. I'm impressed with their quarterback, Ben Wooldridge, who's a senior, 12 touchdowns, just 4 picks on the year. They've got a very good 1-2 punch at wide receiver with Davis and Perry and Nate. Like I said, I'm just impressed with this team, averaging 36.5 points a game. Talking about Coastal, they've had some highs, but really, in my opinion, they were not really that competitive with James Madison a week ago, and that's not what I was expecting. I thought that was going to be a closer game than 39-7. So for that reason, I know Louisiana's on the road and they're in Conway, but I'm going to take the Raging Cajuns in this one. I like how this team's playing. Nate, I secretly think they're kind of, flying under the radar, excuse me, a little bit here in the Sun Belt. And I think they get bowl eligible, their sixth win, and I'm going to take the Raging Cajuns in this one.
Yeah, Brad, that's a great pick. Look, we saw Coastal Carolina struggle tremendously last week against James Madison. And to your point, you said you didn't expect it. I kind of did, honestly. After the departure of Grayson McCall and their head coach going to Liberty, Coastal Carolina just hasn't been the same since. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the coaching hire, if they just every good player's left for the portal, but it's not looking good for them. They start off hot 4-2, but I think it's going to get much worse for them as the season goes on. When you look at Louisiana, though, they've got a great quarterback in Ben Woodridge. Woodridge, I hope I pronounced that right. And this guy, look, he's a dual threat guy. Okay, he can not only beat you in the air, he can beat you with his feet too. He's got 4 rushing touchdowns in 6 games, Brad. That's pretty dang good. Got a good rushing attack to I was going to say counter. That's not the right word. To help out and support with the read option game. And Elijah Davis got 399 yards on the ground with 3 rushing touchdowns in 6 games. He's doing pretty good too. Give me the Louisiana Raging Cajun. This one's pretty easy for me. I think Coastal keeps it closer than they did against James Madison last week, but it's going to be a tough day for Coastal if they can't get it figured out at the quarterback position, because the guy's throwing 4 interceptions in 6 games. You can't do that and win ball games. You just can't. So they got to limit turnovers. If they limit turnovers, they got a shot in this game. But as it stands today, I'm taking the Raging Cajun on Saturday. And I think that kind of rhymed, and that was not anticipated. But let us know down in the comments who you think is going to come out on top in this key Sun Belt matchup. Our next game of the week takes us out to the Midwest, where the Nebraska Cornhuskers hit the road to take on the number 16 Indiana Hoosiers. Who would have ever thought Indiana undefeated coming into this game? 12 p.m. kickoff on Fox. And Indiana currently favored in this one by 6.5 points, played in Memorial Stadium and Bloomington, Indiana, not Lincoln, Nebraska. Both have the same stadium names, Memorial. There's a lot of Memorial stadiums out there, but this one's going to be played in Bloomington, Indiana. Brad, so many storylines in this game. Dylan Raiola taking the next step. Matt Rule versus Kirk Cinetti, 2 of our most favorite coaches in college football, facing off head-to-head. I won't say much. I'll turn over to you, Brad. Thoughts on this Big Ten matchup and who comes out on top in Bloomington, Indiana?
Absolutely, Nate. So excited for this one. This is a big Big Ten showdown on Saturday. We've talked about Nebraska several times here, in our week-to-week selection, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time there other than you continue to see week in, week out, Dylan Raiola continues to improve. Excuse me, he continues to get better. He's got a big arm. I think they're just continuing to get cohesive on offense. I think the defense is playing really, really well. I'm impressed with the job that Matt Rule is doing. I want to jump over to Indiana. Nate, we haven't talked about this team. I do want to say though, if you watched our coaching hires episode, Kurt Signetti was in my top 5 coaching hires. So, we here on the channel we eat crow, but hey, I'm gonna give myself a little bit, give myself a little pat on the back here that I thought he would do a really good job, and year one he's doing an incredible job. Now I do want to say, and not to jump too far ahead, the road gets a lot tougher from here. They've got Michigan, they've got Ohio State in a couple weeks, so Indiana's up for some challenges, but. Nate, what stands out to me about Indiana, first of all, is this offense. They're averaging 47.5 points per game. They're explosive. They've been good on third down. They are just playing really, really, just strong football. On the defensive side of the ball, Carpenter, their defensive lineman, I believe it's 3.5 sacks that he has. But to me, the guy that has really made everything go is Curtis Rourke. He has done an incredible job. 14 touchdowns, just 2 picks. And Nate, he's a big kid. Goes, 6'5", about 220 pounds. Has got a very, very good arm. I'm starting to look at some NFL draft projections. He's getting a day 2 or day 3 grade, but look, that doesn't matter. He's playing very, very good. Once again, great 1-2 punch there at running back with Ellison and Lawton. I am just such a huge fan of what Coach Signetti is doing there in Bloomington. Give me the Hoosiers in this one. I think Nebraska's got a good team. I think they're going to make things tough, but Indiana's got an explosive offense, and to me, that's the difference. Indiana's at home. It's going to be a good crowd, and I just don't think Nebraska will get quite enough stops and keep up with this Indiana offense.
Yeah, Brad, as explosive as Nebraska's offense has been, I'm been very surprised by their lack of run game this year. I think they're averaging under 4 yards a carry, and that's shocking coming from a Big Ten team that kind of, is cultured around a physical run-first offense. Now, granted, they have Dylan Raiola. They're taking chances. They're slinging it down the field. That's going to change a lot over the next couple of years in the Big Ten as we see some of these offenses transition more to not necessarily the air raid, but more of the spread type offense where they're slinging it a little bit more than usual. And I think that's the difference in this game. As much as I love Nebraska, Matt Rule, Dylan Raiola, my heart says go with Nebraska. My mind says pick Indiana. So for this one, I'm going to go with what my gut is telling me, and that's to take the Indiana Hoosiers. I think they're riding high right now. Kurt Signetti has got that program on fire. And look, to Nebraska's, to your point about Nebraska, they're gonna figure it out. This team is on the right track and they're doing the right things. And look, we could wake up Sunday morning and realize, hey, we were wrong about this game. Nebraska comes out on top and wins. But I got to stick with my gut. I got to take the Indiana Hoosiers. Hats off to that program and what he's been able to do with them in just a short amount of time, being in his first year as head coach. He should win Coach of the Year. I just want to throw that out there too. When you look around the country and what these teams are doing, Kurt Signetti should definitely be in the running for head coach of the year. No doubt about it. Give me the Indiana Hoosiers in a close one. Let us know down in the comments who you think is going to come out on top in this Midwest Big Ten matchup. Our next matchup of the week takes us down to South Georgia, Statesboro, to be more specific, where the James Madison Dukes hit the road to take on the 4-2 Georgia Southern Eagles. 4 p.m. kickoff on ESPN Plus, and James Madison going on the road, currently favored by a whopping 9.5 points down in L&E Paulson Stadium, again in Statesboro, Georgia. Both of these programs off to a hot start. James Madison 5-1 entering this contest, and as I mentioned before, Georgia Southern at 4-2. Brad, a lot of big storylines in this game too, fighting in the Sun Belt. I'll turn it over to you. Thoughts on this game and who comes out on top in Statesboro?
Absolutely. Nate, you just mentioned we were just talking about it. Clay Helton has done such a good job at Georgia Southern. I mean, for years, Georgia Southern was known as, a triple option attack and a run heavy team. Of course, now Houston coach, former Tulane coach Willie Fritz was there, and he definitely ran, a spread offense, but definitely they were still a run first attack. And here comes Clay Helton all the way out from USC, and he's put in, definitely a pass heavy offense, and it's just done an incredible job. I'm really, really impressed. Nate, I know you mentioned, excuse me, I know you mentioned this guy when we talked about Georgia Southern a few weeks ago, but their quarterback, J.C. French, who's a sophomore, he's having a really, really good year. But Nate, I mean, James Madison, to me, they're a hot team right now. I, Nate, I'm interested to see, man, especially since we're starting to get close here to the first college football playoff rankings. I think James Madison has got a legit chance to be that group of five team. I really, really do. The Dukes are so good. I'm a huge fan of Alonzo Barnett, their quarterback. 15 touchdowns, just one pick on the year. Man, he is so solid. You just know what you're getting with him. They average 39 points a game. Their defense is just unbelievably. I've been impressed with them. They've given up some points, but I think you're going to continue to see this team improve. 13 team sacks on the year. So I mean, I think they're going to continue to improve. I think the big thing with them is they have such an explosive offense. They're asking their defense, hey, just give us one or two stops a half and we'll be good. So I'm taking the Dukes in this one. They're a 9.5-point favorite. And this is no disrespect to Georgia Southern, but I think the Dukes cover, and I think they win by double digits in this one.
Yeah, Brad, you bring up so many great points for this game. One of the most underrated matchups of the week, in my opinion. I get it, James Madison's favored by 9.5 in this game, but it's going to be an exciting matchup nonetheless. You mentioned J.C. French. Got to tell you up front, Brad, he's questionable for this game. He took a hard hit last week running for on fourth down and was replaced by a backup quarterback. And I just lost it. I had my notes. There he is, Dexter Williams Jr. It's up in the air for Georgia Southern. Clay Helton's got to turn it around fast for this week, getting his backup ready if French can't go. So in terms of James Madison, though, I've been really impressed, to your point, with quarterback Alonzo Barnett the third, to get that properly correct. After the departure of Jordan McLeod and obviously Kurt Cinetti, everyone thought that James Madison wasn't necessarily a lost cause, but they wondered, how is this program going to return to the field this year? How are they going to look? Can they bounce back? They came so close last year, had an amazing record, just a phenomenal job by Kurt Cinetti. We know how good of a coach he is. We just talked about him in the previous matchup at Indiana. But I've been really, really impressed with Alonzo Barnett. It hasn't skipped a beat with that offense at James Madison. A lot of credit to that coaching staff and keeping those players there for the most part. In this matchup, though, I'm taking James Madison as well. I just think overall they've got the better players. They've got the better depth. And I think they just out-physical Georgia Southern. We saw what Genty was able to do against that Georgia Southern defense, And I think James Madison's going to do the same. I think you're going to see Alonzo get more rushes in the run game, and I think they're really going to take advantage of this weather. There's a slight chance of rain on Saturday, and I think that could play a factor into it as well. So give me James Madison, and I do believe that they cover the spread in this one. Let us know down in the comments who you think will come out on top in this Sunbelt matchup in Statesboro, Georgia. Well, let's head out to what I would consider the Northwest, to Corvallis, Oregon, where the UNLV Rebels hit the road to take on the Oregon State Beavers. 10 p.m. kickoff on Brad's favorite network, the CW Network. UNLV favored in this one by 7.5 points in Reser Stadium. I believe I pronounced that right. Two very intriguing programs heading into the 2024 season, and both have done fair, relatively speaking. I think UNLV's done a little bit better when we're talking numbers. Brad, I'll turn over to you. Again, another great matchup this weekend, and one of those games that could go either way depending on a home field advantage and being such a late kickoff. thoughts on this game and who comes out on top in Corvallis?
Absolutely. So this is an interesting game, and obviously, I'm going to get to UNLV in a second. But Nate, we know this is once again this is a playoff implication game for UNLV. Oregon State's an interesting program. Of course, they're now in the Pac-2 with Washington State, going through a transition. And Nate, I think we're both big fans of their ex-head coach Jonathan Smith, and I think we're both of the opinion that if Oregon State was still in a major conference, he would still be there in Corvallis. But give credit; they've done a good job. They're 4-2 right now. I'm really impressed with their running back Anthony Hankerson. He is a transfer from Colorado, and this guy's just a little bit of a bowling ball, 5'8", but about 205 pounds and 639 yards on the year. He has done it. He's done an incredible job. He's really the focal point for that rushing attack. They're still trying to figure things out at the quarterback position. I think that's going to be interesting. And that atmosphere there in Reser Stadium on Saturday night, I think is going to be good. They're going to be amped up because they've got a very, very good UNLV team. Of course, Nate, we were just talking about it. UNLV, everyone was questioning when Matt Stuka decided to, do his thing a couple weeks ago. What was this UNLV team going to look like? And they haven't missed a beat. Haj Malik Williams has stepped right into this Brennan Marion offense and this Barry Odom team, and they're rolling. I am so impressed with this team. I hate to keep repeating myself, but Barry Odom is going to get some big time offers this year. I mean, I think it's the reality of it. He has done such a fantastic job. I've been reading a lot, several teams are upset with their offensive coordinator, and guess who they want? They want Brennan Marion to be the name. So UNLV is a hot program right now. As I mentioned, they've got playoff implications. Nate, I'm going to turn this over to you, but give me the Rebels. Give me the Rebels big in this one. I love what this team is doing. I think Oregon State struggles to shut down Haj Malik Williams in this rushing attack, and the Rebels keep their playoff implications alive.
Yeah, Brad, I got to ask you a question after I make my prediction. But to talk about these two teams, Oregon State, it's terrible what happened to them. Such a great program with a lot of history behind it. And you loved seeing every year the Oregon versus Oregon State matchup. You mentioned Jonathan Smith leaving for Michigan State, kind of left them in the dust. It's just a really hard situation for that program. You hope that the Pac-12 kind of revitalizes itself, and you get teams like Fresno, UNLV, and so forth in that conference, because man, that'd be so much fun to watch. Until then, though, they're going to be struggling for a little while, and I hate that for Oregon State fans, but it just is what it is. When you look at UNLV, you mentioned Barry Odom, you mentioned Brennan at the OC position, and then you mentioned a guy like Haj Malik Williams. Excuse me, tongue twister right there. He hasn't skipped a beat either. When we look at the quarterback play, Matthew Sluka leaves, thinks he's all that. Oh, I deserve this. I deserve that. Well, guess what now, buddy? Now you're stuck in class, probably in micro or macro econ, and Haj Malik Williams is just slinging it all over the field, putting it up numbers. And guess what? He's probably going to end up making a lot more NIL money than you will ever. So joke's on you, Matthew Sluka, but I'm not here to point fingers. I'm here to talk football and pick a winner. I'm taking the UNLV Rebels simply for the fact that this offense is so explosive. Defense is playing great. They're not a top 10 defense by any means, but they're playing really well, and they play consistently. UNLV leads this series 3-2, and I think they make it 4-2 this weekend. Now, regarding the coaching change real quick for UNLV fans, Brad, I want to ask you real quick, if Florida goes through with firing Billy Napier, is Barry Odom a guy that you might consider having SEC experience? He's built a program. NIL has changed. We know Florida has the money. And then you might be able to keep a guy like DJ Lagway at the University of Florida. Maybe you convince Brennan, the OC, to come along with you and start building an SEC program again.
Man, Nate, that's a fantastic question. That is, it'd have to be an intriguing name. You mentioned Barry Odom has SEC experience, and had Missouri, in a good position. I do think he would have to get, I think a big pull to that would have to be Brennan Marion to come call that offense. And you mentioned, man, DJ Lagway in that offense would be fun, but we'll see how it plays out. I have to think though, if Billy Napier is done in Gainesville, here, in a little over 6 weeks, 6 or 8 weeks, I think Barry Odom's going to be on the short list. That's a great question, man. That really is. a couple of, not to get too deep, I think because of his success in Missouri and now at UNLV, I think there's going to be a couple of Big 12 jobs open, and maybe some of those Pacific Coast jobs open. He's going to be a hot name, though, for sure. That's a great question.
Yeah, and even with the Big 12 teams in contention, I have to think Barry Odom's going to wait for a big SEC job like Florida.
Could be.
He has experience. He knows what he's doing. He's going to want that big job. Otherwise, I don't think he's going to leave UNLV. He's got something cooking there. So it's going to be interesting to see. But for this game, let us know in the comments who you think is going to come out on top in Corvallis, Oregon, between the UNLV Rebels and the Oregon State Beavers. And that brings us to our game of the week, a matchup flying so far under the radar. I couldn't even find an article on the internet about this game other than the ESPN preview that they put out for every game. We're heading out to Fargo, North Dakota, in the Fargo Dome, one of my favorite places to watch football in. I've never been there personally, but I love watching it on TV. Me and Brad are hoping to get a chance to go out there soon, where the South Dakota State Jackrabbits hit the road to take on the North Dakota State Bison in the Dakota marker game. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Brad, I believe that the Jackrabbits are 5-1 and North Dakota State is 6-1 heading into this game. Both undefeated in their conferences, only losing to FBS matchups in their own right. South Dakota State lost in a close one to Oklahoma State, and North Dakota State lost in a very close one to the Colorado Buffaloes. Brad, I'll turn it over to you. Thoughts on this great FCS matchup, this deep, hated rivalry game, and who comes out on top in Fargo, North Dakota?
Absolutely, Nate. Man, I wish we were on location for this one, because what a great game. And I am just really, really glad that a big FCS game like this is getting, gets a chance to be on ESPN2. I'm fully expecting College Game Day to probably pick this one. It's just going to be such a fun atmosphere. Everyone knows about North Dakota State, but South Dakota State's a really, really good program as well. And they had some playoff success last year, and everything runs through their quarterback, Mark Gronowski. And this guy is the only year he didn't start was 2021. I'm assuming he had an injury, but Nate, he's been just so solid, and he's doing it this year. 11 touchdowns, 5 picks, 1,100 yards. He's just so solid. They've got they're explosive on offense. I mean, they've put up some big numbers, 63 last week against Youngstown State. Their defense is really, really solid. So this is going to be a fantastic one. And then we're talking about North Dakota State. Everyone knows who the Bison are. Nate, we talked about this one, but, man, they were literally a few plays away from upsetting Colorado week 1 on Thursday night, and they have not missed a beat. They're under a new first-year head coach there in Pulisic, and he's done a good job. And they've just they've left right off. And once again, everything starts and ends with their quarterback, Cam Miller. I'm very, very impressed with this guy. This guy's a true dual threat. I know you're really, really a big fan of Bryce Lance, the younger brother of Trey Lance. Great size. He can go up and get a 50-50 ball. And this is just going to be such a fun game. I mean, these two teams, like you said, a big-time rivalry. It's going to be physical. It's going to be fun. I think it comes down to quarterback play, and for that reason, I'm taking North Dakota State. We don't have a spread on this one. Nate, I think it's going to be single digits. I think it comes down to quarterback play, and this one's in the Fargo Dome. It's a tough place to play, and it's a tough place to win. It's going to be electric. Give me the Bison in this one.
Yeah, Brad, a lot of things to remember going into this matchup. North Dakota State hasn't beat South Dakota State since 2019. That's a long time for North Dakota State Bison fans. They're ready to get back on track. Can they do it this Saturday? Second of all, you mentioned Cam Miller and just an explosive offense that he brings to North Dakota State. And then you talk about South Dakota State. What have we known South Dakota State for in years past? Well, their physicality and their run game. This is going to be a game won in the trenches. It's going to be a close one. South Dakota State's going to try to keep Cam Miller off the field with their run game. North Dakota State's going to try to score quickly to get South Dakota State in a position where they have to start throwing it, where they have to start veering away from their run game and putting their quarterback in a position to make plays in the air. In the end, I agree with you, Brad. I'm going to take the North Dakota State Bison in a close one. I think they get on top early, and I don't want to say they run away with it, but I think, again, to my point a second ago, South Dakota State's going to be put in a very unique situation to where they're going to have to rely on their passing game more than they want to. And with the home field advantage in the Fargo Dome, that crowd is going to play a factor in this one too. The crowd atmosphere, the noise level, it's going to be insane, electric, whatever word you want to input in that sentence, you put it in there. It's going to be massive for these North Dakota State fans. And in the end, I think North Dakota State comes out in a close win against the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. Let us know down in the comments who you think is going to come out in Fargo, North Dakota in this big, heavily contested FCS rivalry game. Be sure to subscribe down below if you're not already. We're growing rapidly. We're up to over 236 subscribers. We're averaging about 14,000 views per month. So we really want to get that subscriber number up to match those views. It really helps the channel grow, and we know that we want you to be a part of it. We're excited for you to be a part of it. Be sure to like these videos, share them with your friends, football fans all around the country. We might be coming to your hometown city soon. We'll see you next week from It's Time to Break the Huddle.